Welcome back to Councillors on the Hot Seat on the Todd Veinotte Show. It's a Monday tradition. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-825 in this 8255. That is in the studio. Councillor Laura White on the phone. Councillor David Hendsbee, and let's go right to the phone lines. Again, that number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We welcome David to the program. David, how are you?
Great. Good morning. Good morning, councillors. I mentioned this before on the show, and David, maybe you could answer this question. You've been a councillor for quite a while. Do you review the statement of compensation, the salaries of Halifax Regional Municipality?
Yes, we get that information. We also get the sunshine list as public as well. So we're aware of the various things, and also when it comes up when in budget discussions, they also talk about any positions they need, what the salary ranges usually are for some of those positions. It's becoming a competitive world out there because we're also competing against the private sector, plus other municipalities are looking for qualified staff, and it's getting difficult to have the personnel that we need.
Yeah, that's not the answer I'm looking for. The answer I'm looking for is, has there been any cuts in any of those salaries over the last two terms? Have you looked at some of the positions? Have you looked at some of the positions and what you are paying? And I mentioned this before. There's one on here, and I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a consultant on here making $125,000 a year, David. You can look at that. Well, so I'm not done here, sir. Okay. So what I'm saying is, you're talking about cuts. You're talking about budgets. You're talking about we're going to lose our resources. We're going to lose some services. Why don't you start looking at the administration? Why don't you guys start looking deep into what these people are making? Some of these people on this list, David, and not police officers, not firefighters and overtime. I'm talking about positions that it's mind-blowing when you read the position and what they're making. Why don't you start looking into that and how you can cut? What's your answer for that?
Well, that is part of the budget review in regards to what positions are contractual through the union negotiations. It's kind of hard to cut those when they're negotiated contracts, but when it comes to the non-unionized positions or consultants, those things are on the table for review. So it depends on the department's work schedule, business plan. Do they need these consultants or not? Question may be is some of the work we may not have staff complement in-house to do, and that's why we have to contract out from time to time. So those are some of the debates we'll be having in regards to the workload required and the personnel we have on hand to do it.
I think that's a political answer, David. I think what you're answering is looking for a way to get out of it. As for unions, so on and so forth, I'm pretty sure a percentage of these, David, that I'm looking at and others with me look at every morning are not unionized. I'm pretty sure that it hasn't been reviewed in two terms. So in closing, I'll say this. This is a little disgusting of what these people make, what you as a councillor and the other councillor in that office and around your table have agreed to. And you could call it tendering, competitiveness. That's just a way to get around it. There's way too much money being spent here, way too much money being spent here. Some of these people make more than your mayor. And their term must be ending. If I can sign a term, David, that I can make $126,000 a year for 8 years, I'd be laughing. But I don't think that's the case. I don't think it's an 8-year term. I think what you councillors need to do is sit around and find out where you could save money from this. There's a hell of a lot of money in here, David. A lot of money being wasted by the council and the city. HRM, whatever you want to call it. I live just in the outskirts, thank God, so I don't sit in the traffic for an hour like everybody every morning. But this is disgusting to see these salaries that are on this paper. And I think someone needs to take charge and look at it. And every time you call this show, every time you bring it up, it's an answer like yours. And I don't think that's good enough, David. Have a great day.
Thanks, David. I appreciate the call. Councillor Hendsbee, you want to respond?
Well, like I said, we don't have the detail of the budget in front of us yet. We don't see the number lines until we go department by department. There'll be question lines in there in regards to full-time equivalent for employees versus consultant fees and stuff. So that's all on the table when it comes up for review.
Councillor White?
Yeah, like Councillor Hendsbee said, that is something we asked for. What would be the effect of a freeze or that sort of thing? So that's all going to come back to us and be on the table. But when it is a collective agreement, the council has limited
We've talked about freezing in hiring, but is there a scenario? Is there a path towards savings here that would see you take a look at your staffing complement within the city and maybe make some cuts?
Well, that's already been done to bring the budget they're bringing, and then they've been asked to go further. But I do think we need to remember that all our services are delivered by our staff. We need our staff, and we need competent staff, and we need to pay them a wage that they want to be there and come to work. So you have to balance it all. You can't just cut, and expect to get good results from people.
Councillor Hendsbee?
Lauren said it, we need the people to do the jobs. Most of our budget is salaries and stuff. And the question mark is that if we start cutting back or not hiring, what services get impacted? Those are some things we have to evaluate.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Kurt to the program. Kurt, how are you?
I'm fine, and hello to all of you, and happy December start. Mm-hmm. If I could, I want to talk about bike lanes, always a high point of conversation. I'm a 76-year-old recreational biker, and I put 8,000 kilometers on my bike in the last 3 years, so I certainly use it. But my point is there is so much call-in, in particular down to this show, against bike lanes and the old adage of I never see anybody on a bike. But I'd encourage people to go and have a look at the Halifax Harbour Bridge count and just use that as something to look at and consider that there are people cycling. They just released a report in October. 6,700 people crossed that bridge in the month of October. And the daily average throughout the year, this is throughout the year, is 342 people. And the other callers typically say, nobody will ever ride them in the winter. Well, it does go down in the winter because there isn't great infrastructure, but it goes down to a quarter. There are people that are using it. And I'm advocating not so much for me. I can get out in nice weather. But as a main point of access for commuters who might not have an alternative to a car, who might not be able to work with buses, I think cycling is something that should be on. There's regular callers who say this isn't necessary, it's a luxury. Let's start cutting bike lanes and that. And I know I met you, Laura, at the Deputy Mayor's bike ride, and David, I spoke to you there. I just feel that people do not view this as an attractive means of transportation, and a lot of people won't ride if there isn't the connectivity that's being proposed to safe bike lanes and that sort of thing. So, and I've had just as recently in the last couple of weeks, people in cars stop and say, "I could kill you. You're blocking my way." And I think with the attitude. And it is pervasive on the show, Dan, that bikes are just in the way. Move over, let cyclists get in. So I'd stop there, but just ask both councillors. I know David is in favor of just painting lines on the side. Is there some way we can promote this as an attractive alternative for people who don't afford? And the two areas I would look at would be getting something in from Spryfield and getting through the Windsor Exchange. I'll be quiet and listen to the response if there is any. Thank you very much,
Kurt. Man. Thank you. We'll start with you, Councillor White.
I am looking out at the window at a brave cyclist about to turn left on Roby onto Yonge. and I don't mind cycling like that in the traffic, but a lot of people don't feel safe and don't give it a try because it's intimidating. So we need different types of cycling infrastructure. So we do need the protected parts and also even sometimes just removing some parking spaces to have that side of the road or painted lane is also helpful. I think we've got a real culture shift if we're going to have more cycling here. I think we need to have respect for people no matter how you're getting around. There's different ways we could do that, like where I'm looking at this guy queuing up. We see in a lot of other cities, there's a painted green box at the front of the traffic lane. So that welcomes cyclists to come to the front and gives them the priority to get it out ahead of the traffic. That's a really inexpensive thing to do to make yourself more of a cycling city. I think there is more we can do beyond the protected bike lanes as well.
Councillor Hendsbee.
My very first question, and I got elected back in 1993 in Halifax County to the Service Standards Committee, was to the Bridge Commission. When are we going to put sidewalks and bikeways on the bridge? And that was many years ago, and I'm proud to be a part of the Bridge Commission that saw that eventually come through, sidewalks and bikeways on the McDonald Bridge. It's been a great asset for connecting the city for active transportation. And I agree with Laura. The green boxes at intersections will make it simpler. People who stand out, the drivers will realize that's a safe refuge for cyclists to sit at an intersection waiting to get through the light like a car is. So, that's an inexpensive proposition. I'm in favor of paving shoulders and put the white lines down. I'm in favor of that. I'm getting a little edgy when it comes to the extra infrastructure, be it the concrete curbs and the stand-up sticks and some raised levels. I said, let's just put the infrastructure down first. And if we need to have some problematic areas that need more protection, then look at it. Let's not go with the full Cadillac right away. Let's just do the Chevette for now. Let's get the infrastructure. Let's get the network down. And then if there's any trouble spots, then try to address it.
I loved my Chevette. Anyway, we need to take a break for the news. Councillor on the hot seat will continue after the break. All right, welcome back. This is Councillors on the Hot Seats for the next 30 minutes. Our two councillors will be here to answer your questions in the studio. District 7 Councillor Laura White, and on the phone joining us as a pinch hitter, that being District 2 Councillor David Hendsbee. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Chris to the show. Chris, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Well, budget, property cap, there's a lot of stuff on my mind. But Laura, did I hear you mention earlier that 91% of all the properties are capped, all the residential properties?
I can't remember if that was just single-family homes or all the properties, but that number, 91%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell the listening audience and myself what the eligibility requirements to have a capped property is?
They're all capped, aren't they? It's just when you buy your house and then
it was up to a certain year, was it not, Chris?
Like when you buy in.
Oh, no, I know the answer, but I want to see if the councillors know.
Okay.
Well, just that all properties are capped, but it resets when you sell. So that's why people get hit with quite a bit higher taxes when you're buying your home.
David, what is your thought on it? What's the eligibility requirements?
Well, all residential properties are capped until sold, and when they're sold, they go to the new valuation they were sold at. So the cap gets reset at that new value.
It's not on rentals, if that's what you're trying to talk about, Chris.
Private residential homes, yes.
Yeah.
No, well, really, with all due respect,
not capped.
Before you guys approach the province to adjust the cap, do your homework and learn about the cap first. First of all, it does apply to any rental property that's under 4 units as long as one of the units is owner-occupied. Also, after 1 year of ownership of property, the Property Valuation Services Corporation is supposed to automatically put that property as a capped assessment. The only time that you pay that you would pay the higher rate on the full assessment would be the first year that you own it. Your assessment gets capped after that 1 year of ownership. It looks to me as though you guys are looking at removing this or hoping to get this cap removed as an easy way out of the financial mess that you've created for the city. I mean, this is low-hanging fruit. And, yeah, you say about how you might consider lowering the tax rate, but once that cap is changed to a full evaluation of the properties, you've got a big capital base to work on, so what's going to stop you from increasing? I hear councillors all the time complaining about Nova Scotia Power asking for 15 or 18 or 16%. Groceries are up, rents are up, all this sort of thing. But why does it seem that council is the only one that doesn't want to be accountable or expected to be accountable for the expenditures? And I include staff in that as well, because they do drop the budget. They give you the Coles Notes version probably and say this is what you should do, and you guys do it. Why aren't you more accountable? And I have a suggestion as to how you could be accountable, if you'd like to hear it.
Okay, there's a lot there. Accountable. I mean, we all work really hard every day, Chris, to take in the information that's coming at us and make the best decisions we can. So staff comes to us with both like the standard budget, and then we work from there, but also they act on motions that come from us. So they are working with us to come to make the best decisions. So they make recommendations, and it's up to us to make the decisions. Regarding the cap, like I'm quite concerned with the equity piece there. It's really unfair to people that are trying to get into the home ownership game. And
can you expand on that? How is it unfair?
Because like I see a young family on my street with 2 little kids paying, probably double the taxes that I am. It's just not right. We're living in the same spot and having the same.
Laura, excuse me, but you're missing the boat on this. People buy a property the same as I bought mine 30 years ago, same as David bought his or you bought yours however many years ago. You buy it based on your current budget and your current level of affordability.
Yeah, but Chris, not to interject here, but is it fair that your next door neighbor's paying half the tax that you are for the same services?
Not in my mind.
You brought up a good point. You said for the same services.
Right. You're getting garbage. You're getting sewer.
Right.
You're getting all that stuff. Right. So
exactly.
Why is it fair? And I'll turn it back over to you in a sec. Why is it fair that I live next door to Councillor White and she's paying half the municipal tax that I am?
Oh, okay. This is the problem with the system, is that it's based upon a flawed principle of using the assessed value or the supposed assessed value or retail value, market value of your property. That's not the way it should be. The system should run that you pay according to the services provided by HRM, and everybody would pay the same, regardless of whether you have $1 million house or a $2 million house. The services to your doorstep from HRM do not cost 1 penny more for the $2 million house than it does for the $1 million house. You should pay for the services that you get. You shouldn't be paying based on the fact that your house appreciated over 30 years or 40 years.
Well, yeah, that's a different conversation. But within the system we're in with property tax, talking about.
Yeah, I know, but don't you agree that that's really the way it should be? You pay for the service. Isn't that what we pay property taxes for? Is to cover the services that we receive. But in many areas, we're paying way more than what the services cost. We're paying way more than what the services cost.
You're correct. There is an imbalance throughout.
So should that not be brought into balance, really?
It's tricky. I think we should look at it, but yeah, it's tricky. Go ahead,
Councillor Hendsbee.
We had this discussion many years ago in regards to should we be based on assessments or on services provided and stuff. And I could probably dig up those old reports and stuff, because I can tell you right now, in my particular district, it costs an enormous amount of money for garbage collection just because of the sheer territory it has to cover. But in the cities, you have a lot more concentration, so it costs less per person or per capita or per dwelling to pick up the garbage. But the question is, where does that garbage go? It goes out to the county area. So the compensation was provided all in one service. That's what happened many years ago at Metropolitan Authority. They put all the contracts together and did it that way, and everybody pays across the board as a unified universal service. But the question, though, is that, we're talking about accountability. We are the only government that cannot run a deficit. So every year we try to, when a budget gets approved and it goes forward, we try to stick to that budget as much as possible. Some years we do great. We have some surplus opportunities. That surplus gets carried forward. We can re-establish some of our reserves in where they've been drawn down. Or if we have a deficit, we got to carry that deficit forward and charge on the next tax year. We try to do our damnedest to try and keep it on budget once the budget's approved. But the biggest debate is getting to that final budget number. That's where the real debate is. And what services, what limitations should we have? How many people should we employ? What reduction of services we require. Those are the things that we're going to be debating over the next number of months.
Yeah, David, I understand all that, and I can appreciate all that. But from the taxpayer's standpoint, it doesn't look like you guys are trying to save anything. You have all these gold-plated programs, bike lanes, traffic bumps, all this kind of stuff that is not necessary. They're nice to haves, but they're not necessary, and that's what pisses people off, is that they see this sort of thing. But I have a suggestion as how you can be accountable. I would suggest that the pay scale for staff and for council if you come up with a budget that is over and above, the increase in the taxes are going to be over and above the CPI, let's say it's 4% higher than CPI, you take a 4% pay cut. And if you balance the budget the next year without a rate increase over and above the CPI, you get your prior year's cut, you get it put back on and reinstated. How about something like that? Because in business and in life, Dan gets paid by the radio station or by Rogers or whoever. If he wants to do a $10,000 fix-up to his house and he hasn't got the money, he can't turn to Rogers and say, I need $10,000 because I want to do this to my house. Give me the money. But that's what you guys do to the taxpayer. And it's got to stop, David. We can't afford this stuff. The spending is out and beyond control. We just can't take it. People are strapped. Don't you guys understand that?
Performance-based compensation may work in the private sector, but we're not here to profit off the services of the municipality on everybody across the board. We're there to provide a service across the board. Those who use it or those who don't use it, but we still have to provide the service universally. So you're saying if we're to make some cutbacks and some drastic cutbacks and make a huge savings, that we should profit from that? I do not believe in that. Sorry.
Councillor White?
Yes, I'm quite concerned with equitable delivery of services and making sure affordability is getting to the people who really need it. So yes, we have to look at that, what we're charging in property tax, but we do so many programs that really help people live and live well and be able to afford things like transit, for example, and our public rec programs. And if you're talking about the bike infrastructure, a lot of people depend on that to get around safely. And if you get around by bicycle, it's a lot cheaper than any other method.
Chris, we're up against the break. I appreciate your call. We're going to continue on the other side. You're listening to Councillors on the Hot Seats. We're back in minutes. All right, we're almost out of time. We'll try to get as many calls in as we can. Councillor David Hendsbee, Councillor Laura White in the studio, and your questions on the line. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's welcome Buddy to the show. Buddy, how are you?
I'm not too bad at all, Dan. Yourself?
I'm well. Your question for the councillors, please.
Okay, my question for the councillors. First of all, I'd like to agree with that guy said they're getting paid too much. For one, starters. Second, there's no more bikes on the road than there was in 1960 when I was biking around town. And thirdly, I would like to know if the councillors run the city or does Casino Taxi. They gave all the taxis in the city a raise of $6.40. It went before Casino. They said it was too much. So everything dropped back to $5.40, thanks to the councillors at Casino Taxi. Thank you very much.
Thanks, buddy. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Anybody you want to respond to that, Councillor White?
The tax. Oh, there we go. I'm not super familiar with the taxi thing, but I know there's a lot of trying to get the inequities between Uber and taxi sorted out. So,
Hendsbee, any thoughts?
Well, he might think there might be not many more bicycles, but a lot more e-scooters going around now. And I think that we're finally 1 year into our pilot program. I think you're going to see a lot more e-scooters coming around in the near future. So those bike lanes are going to be populated with e-scooters. The cyclists are going to start complaining about it.
Yeah, it is a conflict, the different speeds between people walking, people on a regular bike, and the electric mobility.
Does the city make any money off of that, project? Is Bird, I think it is the company that's doing the pilot. Do they pay for that service, or how does that work?
Yeah, there is a contract they provided with us, but like I said, this is the bylaw proposal was under a 2-year pilot, see how it works and how it doesn't work. My big concern is that I hate seeing people drive around those things without helmets on. Even the people that buy their own private devices and stuff, they should be wearing head protection and stuff. And if you ask me, that's the quickest spot to send a ticket right there and then.
Councillor White, you're a cyclist. You obviously interact with them more than I do.
I'm not familiar with if the city's taking in any money from Bird. I'd like to find that out. But I did want to comment on the caller was mentioning about driving and more biking in 1960. I agree. There were far fewer cars on the road in 1960, so it would feel a lot safer to get out there on your bike. So it's just a totally different time we're dealing with now. If we had a culture of going slow and not so many cars on the road, it would be no problem. But we don't have that culture and situation anymore, so that's why we need the protected infrastructure.
Has the ship sailed on that, though? I know you said that we want to get less cars on the road, but we have generationally moved to the car. Each generation, my family had one car, then we had two. Now my current setup have two. Some people have three with their kids. It just seems like it's growing exponentially. We're a car culture now.
Yep.
Can we reverse that trend by just putting bike lanes on, or is this a bigger part of a solution?
Yeah, it is a bigger part. We need to offer people options. The problem with cars is they don't scale well, right? Sure, it works when we only have a few of them, but the more and more and more, it's just getting out of control. And we don't want to have all our land use be to roads and parking. That's not a very nice place to live. So we have to balance it and give people options.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Back to the phones. We welcome Mark to the show. Mark, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Good. Your question, please.
Just very quickly. So I live in Lower Sackville. I was one of the people who benefit from the property tax cap.
Okay.
At the time, it helped us afford our home and actually put food on the table for our children. Retired now, so I'm just worried what's going to happen. Like, will I have a home?
Start with you, Councillor White.
Yeah, I can understand your worries there. What we're looking for is more equity in the system. That's what Councillor Steele's motion is about. So I'm quite sure that if there was movement in that the rate would drop, so that we could phase this in over time and it wouldn't be a big increase.
Right, but so this was way back in the 80s, right? Is when it was implemented?
I believe it's 20 years old, so not that long.
Okay.
It was the NDP government.
But wouldn't a lot of those already getting phased out by people reselling or people that retire and sell their homes? And like, how many homes are still left on that?
Well, that was the surprising part when I mentioned that 91% that staff mentioned. It's quite a bit. And the other thing is it prevents, like, if you're in your home and you're afraid to sell, but you don't need that big home anymore, it prevents the turnover, and it's not great for the housing market either.
But so I can't sell and rent. I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I'm in my home. Now you're saying this is going to be, you're looking at removing that or even phasing it out. What is that going to mean for me? Like, where am I going to have a house, or will my taxes go up so much that I have to be homeless?
Yeah, that certainly would not be the intention, is to spike people's tax bills. That's not what we would be looking at doing. No.
But not the intention, but still, that doesn't say it's not going to happen, right? You don't mean to do it, but then people are being forced out of their homes because they can't afford to pay the taxes.
The theory behind removing the cap is that if you remove the cap, you get a truer assessment base, a broader, higher tax base to spread the cost of service across, therefore lowering the tax rate. So therefore, hopefully, the theoretical equation would be is a higher tax base means a lower tax rate. Not so. There's what we're hoping to see, but we don't know that till we get.
I agree what you're saying. So, but you're bringing the higher tax people down and the capped people up. But that still doesn't really help me.
No, the people that are capped or who are uncapped now, they wouldn't really see a change, because if you're taking the cap off, you're taking the depressed value on the properties that have been capped. All the other uncapped properties are already at market value. So the question is how much of a market lift will there be of uncapping the assessments? And if that should bring up an enormous amount of money, that should also drop the rate for everybody, the tax rate, even though it doesn't change the valuation of those uncapped properties.
Mark, we're just about out of time. Appreciate your call, sir. Very quickly, Councillor White, anything going on in District 7 that you want to raise and bring attention to?
I was just going to mention the nice light shows. We have the Evergreen Fest down on the waterfront till the 14th of December, and the Public Gardens has lighting every night until New Year's Day.
Councillor Hendsbee, you laid a laundry list out for us last week. I imagine there's still lots going on up there.
Oh, yes, we had a few Christmas tree lightings this past weekend. Got more coming this Friday, and Lake Echo's going to be tree lighting and fireworks. And on Saturday, it's going to be the lobster tree lighting in Musquodoboit Harbor by the railway station, plus the fabulous Christmas parade that same evening on Saturday, December 6th. And also on the Sunday, the 7th, going to be a dynamic tree lighting in Lake Charlotte with fireworks and Santa in the Clam Factory building. So it's going to be a nice festive weekend on the Eastern Shore.
I always love a dynamic tree lighting. Councillor Hendsbee, I appreciate it. Thanks for stepping up on short notice.
No problem at all, sir.
That is Councillor David Hendsbee, District 2, and Councillor for District 7, Laura Waite. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Can I say one more thing?
Sure.
We have volunteer award nominations out now. If that's for every district, it'd be great for people to write in with people they think should be awarded.
And info available on the website,
It's
correct?
all online, yep.
Got it. Appreciate it. That's going to do it for Councillors on the Hot Seats. So we're going to take a break for the news, get an update on the other side of it. We're going to open up those telephone lines. It's time for the first open hour of the week. Something you heard in the last hour that you'd like to comment on, something that we didn't touch on and you'd like to bring attention to, or just want to talk about something that is on your mind. That's the beauty of an open hour, and we're going to do that right after the news. This is the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. It's time now for our first open hour of the week. The lines are open, 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. An opportunity to talk about whatever it is on your mind. Regular rules apply, of course. You can bring just about anything up here on the show. We'll listen to your opinion. May not agree with it, but we'll certainly listen to it. Busy, I will say, edition of Councillors on the Hot Seat. The last hour, lots of ground covered there. Property assessment caps seem to be one of the topics du jour, I will say. And the reason why is that tomorrow, Regional Council is scheduled to debate a motion from Councillor Steele that would take a look at the property assessment cap that is currently in place. Now, I will caveat that by saying it's provincially regulated and mandated, so they would have to ask the province to do that, which is, these days, that relationship between city council and the province, not necessarily the best, I will say. Anyway, that might be something you want to talk about, or something else that you heard as we talked about budgets and so on and so forth. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Holy smokes. Let's begin with Cheryl. Cheryl, how are you?
I'm not doing very good after that last session there, that last hour. I'm really shaken here. Laura White saying, it's not fair to young families with new homes. Was it fair in the 90s, when I had to pay way more than someone in the 40s for a house? There's a lot of people retired, living on one income, that are going to be forced out of their homes, and they want people to be forced to sell. They just said that they want to force people to sell to open up those homes, right? So I'm hearing they don't want one person in a home that they paid for their whole life that's capped. They want to remove the cap. And I'm thinking, I want to cancel my services. I'll take my own garbage. I don't get much anyway. Take my own garbage. I'll deal with all my own services. Maybe I'll stop paying my property taxes as of now.
Cheryl, do you have a neighbor? Do you have a person across the street or neighbors next door?
All of my neighbors are capped, and they're happy with the cap.
So if I move in next door to you and I buy that house, is it fair that I pay much more property tax than you do?
Well, you know what you're getting into. What is it fair that I paid way more for a house than people's parents did in the 40s?
Well, I'm going to pay a lot more for that house than you paid for it, right?
Well, I'm paying a lot more for a car today than someone who bought it 10 years ago.
I get it, but Cheryl, to me, it's the fairness piece is the part that bothers me. If I have the same house, same assessed value, same street, same services, and I'm paying twice the tax that you are. Is that fair?
Well, what's not fair is removing something that I counted on to keep my home. I knew what I was getting into. You know what you're getting into. Now they're going to flip the switch. Inflation is real. So are you saying that we should go back and reset all of our prices 30, 40 years ago to make it fair for people today? That's not happening. So why should this happen?
That's not what I'm saying at all, Cheryl. I'm saying, is it fair for me to pay twice the tax that you pay?
Yes, because your purchase price is higher than what my purchase price was.
Okay.
That's exactly how it works. And you get capped after a year, and then you can balance it from there.
How do you balance it? I'm still going to be paying twice as much as you are, but it'll be capped at 1.5% or whatever it is.
Did you buy a home already?
No, and I can't because I can't afford the tax bill.
So don't take it out on me because I bought a house at a lower price. I didn't buy a house for $800,000. I didn't sign up for an $800,000 house. Okay.
Yep.
And the fact is, they're bringing more and more people are here. We're supposed to help with the tax base. All it is costing us more. And if they don't know how to balance a budget, they should be thrown out because clearly I'm willing to go with my garbage once a month. I'm willing to cut back. They are not. And I want Chris to call more and more and more because I like what he's saying and I want to listen more to him.
All right, Cheryl. Thank you. 902-4056. So it's my fault. That's what Cheryl's basically saying, is that it's my fault because I didn't live in that neighborhood 20 years ago when the cap came on or whatever the date was, that I pay double the tax that she does on the same assessed value. Everything's the same, right? The house is the same value, the property, the land is the same value, but because I didn't live there 20 years ago, I'm good to pay twice the amount of tax than somebody else is, or whatever the number is. Just doesn't feel right. Doesn't feel fair. Maybe you disagree. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Hello, Gloria.
How are you?
I know you and I are going to disagree on this one.
Well, I have a bit of information that you don't have,
okay,
Dan, so maybe you will disagree. I don't know what you're saying when you're saying you're paying twice the taxes.
Well, and I don't know what the actual number is, but I'll be
paying
a lot more tax.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Like let's use your house for an example, right? You've been living there for a long time, and you've had a capped assessment, right? So you're capped at 1.5%. If I move in next door and I have the same assessed value of my house that you have, because I'm not capped, I'm in line for this 4% or whatever it is that's coming this year. Am I not?
You will lose the cap for 1 year.
Yeah, for a year.
But what is happening out there, Dan, that you're not mentioning, it's the price that people are paying for the houses that are putting everybody else's
But I can't control that part. Can I, Gloria?
No, I'm not. I'm just giving you the facts.
Okay.
You can't control any of it. But if my house is assessed a certain amount and the same house next door sells for $200,000 more than my house, my assessment is going to go up. Do you understand that?
Well, I think everybody's assessment goes up every year.
Well, that's what I mean, but it's the people buying the houses and paying the big prices that is putting everybody else's assessment up.
Okay, I think I understand.
That's the way it works.
I do, but that doesn't help me getting into the market, does it?
It doesn't help you at all getting into the market. I'm not talking about you getting into the market.
Okay.
I'm talking about what happens out there in assessment. And when you buy a property, you lose the cap for 1 year.
Yep.
And then the cap is back on. But in the meantime, when you buy this property, the assessors are looking at the price you're paying and saying, oh, that property's worth that. All the others are worth that. So your assessment is going up.
Okay.
Do you understand that?
I do. I understand where you're coming from.
Assessment's not easy to understand.
But
when you spend 30 years in it, you understand it.
I will absolutely defer to you. I know that's what you did before you got into politics, and you're the expert on it. But that being said, Gloria, you're capped at, what is it, CPI is what it is, isn't it? Isn't that what it is? And if I buy that property this year and that cap comes off and City Council's numbers are showing at like 4% or more increase in a value, then I'm going to get locked in at that, right?
For 1 year.
Yeah, but then it's not going to go down. Our tax bills are never going to come together.
For 1 year, Dan.
Yes.
Then you get the cap.
Right.
You understand that? You lose it for 1 year. But in the meantime, the price that you paid and the exorbitant prices that people are having to pay is raising everybody else's assessment.
I understand that. Hendsbee said on the show, Gloria, I'm sure you were listening, that the idea behind this would be that if the cap came off, that those that were capped would see an increase, and those that were uncapped are going to see a decrease. Is that your opinion? Is that how that would work if we did this?
What did he say? I heard him, but I didn't understand that.
The way that I understand it, that Councillor Hendsbee said that those that are capped, if the cap comes off, are going to see a rise in their their assessment.
Taxes.
And so the tax base would grow larger. So then they would have to reduce. They could reduce
the rate.
Well, he
said it probably would be reduced.
Yeah.
Don't buy that story.
Okay.
It would be reduced probably for 1 year until they found means of spending the rest of the money. Don't fall for that. I don't fall for that. The big problem with the budget, Dan, is this: the councillors should be receiving a report from finance every 4 months as to where they stand in the budget. Then it wouldn't be the end of the year where we have to find millions. Then, if you're smart, they would budget accordingly. And they wouldn't end up at the end of the year having to find millions. I was there for 12 years, and I voted for one budget because I always felt that more changes could be made, and I stood up and said that.
Gloria, I always appreciate your calls.
Thanks.
Have a fantastic day. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Jam lines, folks. We're going to take a break. We'll get to as many calls as we can on the other side. This is the first open hour not only of the week, but of the month. How about that? We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. We got full lines, so we'll try to get to as many people as we can over the next 40 minutes or so. The number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Keep trying if you're getting a busy signal. Let's welcome Ken to the show. Ken, how are you?
Good, Dan. Councillor White, I find it very disturbing. She was interviewed on the news or whatever about the bike lanes, and when it was brought up, when the interviewer said, don't you think there's a little problem there when it goes from 20,000 to 100,000 or whatever the numbers are now? And she goes, no, it would be stupid to stop the bike lanes now, right?
Yep.
So, okay, we're out that much money in the budget. In my view, it's stupid to go ahead with the bike lanes when 99% of the city don't want them. And as far as the caller that was on during the councillors there with his reports, right, myself and Rick Howe used to argue about this all the time. The reports are going to go to whichever way whoever paid for the reports. So if you run, Dan, if you run ABC company, and I come to you and say, listen, I want to report on the bicycle lanes, and you want them in the city, which way do you think that report is going to go?
It's certainly on the way that you formulate the question, that's for sure.
It's going to go to whoever's writing the check to that person who's doing the report, right? Otherwise, where's their next check coming from, right? And then when you bring up Brunswick Street, and then she gives the old Prime Minister Carney answer, who cares, right? Okay, so you don't care. And then you say right after that, well, we got to have all the best people working for us. Well, okay, here's one to start. How about the engineer that laid out the Brunswick Street intersection? You can get rid of him. There's one right off the bat. Maybe the next time, Dan, after the budget, when you're asking the councillors, I don't know what the selection process or whatever, before they show up on Monday morning, ask them to check through their laptop and see how many reductions have they got in staff. Because it's like, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. I'll keep your job if you keep mine, right? And it don't matter. And they could have saved a whole lot of time when they were talking to Chris and just say, no, we're not going to be accountable for nothing. Next question. Right? Because nobody is accountable for anything. And I'll tell you, the first two, if I was in the office there, the first two I would audit would be Laura White and Sam Austin. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks for the call, Ken. Appreciate it. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. I drove through Brunswick Street on Friday, and I can certainly feel, and to be fair, I don't spend a lot of time downtown, so I did drive through there on Friday, and I will say that it's peculiar in design. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know if that's the proper way to lay things out, but it certainly is peculiar in design. And boy, it's taken a long time for that thing to get done, hasn't it? There's been cones down there almost feels like all summer, if not all summer. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. We will welcome David to the show. David, how are you?
Not too bad. I thought I'd just give you a call about everybody seems to be having a lot of problems with the about taxes, I think that your buddy guru, Clinton Wilkins, would have a good discussion on that.
Sure.
Because I'm hoping that, number two, I hope we have enough on the budget for snow's coming, so we need snowplows out there. That's number two.
Mm-hmm.
And number three, for the awards, I'd like to put my vote out for all the people that fought in the forest fires all across Canada. And the second group, that includes volunteers, with helping to try to find the Lindsay kids.
Right, up in Pictou County.
Those are group number two.
All right.
So I'd like to put my vote on that.
Thanks, David.
All right. Have a good day.
You too. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we next? Let's go to Chris. Chris, how are you?
Good morning, Dan. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am well. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to talk about the tax rate cap. It seems to be a hot topic, by the way. Doing a great job, and all the best to Todd. I hope he's doing well. Yeah, I just wanted to make mention that, we're talking about how it's unfair, and I know it's a hard question because everybody wants fairness. I think it's fair to it's a fair statement. But in 2000 to 2020, 2024, in those 4 years, my full disclosure, I am capped. But between 2020 and 2024, my assessment doubled, and I think a lot of people experienced that. I'm not kidding you, 2 times. So my taxes essentially, even though I had the rate cap, doubled. So when you talk about the housing prices being high, yeah, absolutely, they are high. They're at a ridiculous rate where, even our kids are scratching their heads in their 20s going, what are we going to do?
You're right. The dream of home ownership now is pretty much a far-fetched thing, right? I mean, the average price is what, $580,000 now in Halifax?
Something like that. So, they start looking outwards. So that's a bit of a problem. But in terms of fairness also, I mean, we talk about services from the city, which, depending on where you live, that number varies. I don't have sidewalks. I don't have water. I don't have all that stuff. I'm on well and septic.
Right.
Fair enough. But there's also a surcharge for that. I recognize that. But when I pay my federal and provincial taxes, you're at a certain tax rate. And if you're on the low income side or the high income side, there's a very marked difference in the income tax that you pay. But yet you still get the same service. So my point is that why do we want to penalize people who have gone through the trouble of planning their life with the cap? Because before we were talking about, and just after COVID, the housing crisis. And it sounds like to me, a lot of people are, living pension paycheck to pension paycheck or paycheck to paycheck, even just paying for, utilities and whatnot. And I don't see how this is going to help those people who may be suffering or not suffering, but they're on a tight budget. And you may send people out in the street. I don't see how this initiative is helpful at all with no warning and no thought to it. So I find it quite upsetting that this is going through.
Great call, Chris. I appreciate
all
it,
right,
sir.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you. Have a good day.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. And I understand that, and I do. I know that I'm curious about fairness when it comes to caps and when caps come off, but I can certainly appreciate the consternation for those that have been capped and would be facing an increase in assessment if the cap comes off. I can absolutely appreciate that. I think that the cap system was probably flawed from the outset, just like when we monkey with all kinds of things, right? We let's talk about the rental cap, right? The idea was that there was people that were perceived as taking advantage of renters during COVID, and when we had occupancy rates that were much lower than they are now, and people were seeing 100, 110, 115% increases or more in their rents. So we put a cap on, and now we're going to keep that cap on until the end of 27. But as I mentioned to the Premier when he was here a couple weeks ago, the apartment across the street from me is $1,000 a month more than I'm paying on my rent right now. And what's going to happen when that cap comes off? So I certainly can understand where our last caller is coming from. Need to stop, need to take a break. We'll get an update on the news on the other side of it. The open hour continues. There's some lines open now. If you were unable to get through earlier on, there's a couple there available if you want to get in and join the conversation. Again, the number is 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. We're back after the news. All right, welcome back. Open hour continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Just a couple of emails before we get back to the phones. This one from Rob says, "Hey, Dan, your point about fairness is valid, but would you say that it's fair for someone's taxes to double because the assumed value of your home doubles based on market forces out of your control? Is it fair that your taxes double when your services remain the same? Neither scenario is fair because basing municipal taxes on property assessments is inherently unfair. Basing taxes on services or income is the only fair way to do that." That comes from Rob. This one from Dan says, "Hey, Dan, when you buy your house, you'll know the tax bill. You'll be capped at the purchase price you bought it at. It helps to manage your budget every year going forward. It's totally fair that you know the cost, what the cost of the house will be when you sign up to buy it. Is it fair that my neighbors have lower assessment caps than mine for the exact same lot and house and outbuildings? Life isn't fair, Dan." And then he writes LOL on the back of that. Carl writes, "The city should first place emphasis on asking the province to fix the current assessment system before requesting that the cap is removed. Currently, these assessments in HRM vary wildly, even with houses in the same neighborhood or street, and that would fetch the same sale price. As to the argument of parity in paying for city services, different folks who now live throughout the city now pay vastly different taxes for the same services. Who really believes more money coming into the city from the cap removal will go directly towards reducing taxes?" And that comes from Carlos. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? Let's welcome Steve to the show. Steve, how are you?
Hey, Dan, I'm good. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
So the issue that I got, and I got Viewpoint up here, and I'm looking at a house on Mount Pleasant Avenue in Dartmouth. I just picked one that recently sold. So it sold on April 7, 2025 for $787,000.
Right.
And the last time it was sold was in 2011, the same house. So we don't know if it was renovated. We don't know any of that sort of stuff. But the last time it was sold was for $287,000 in 2011.
Yep.
Okay. So let's say argument that the people that sold that house in 2011, they built that house or they bought that house, based on their current income. And let's say they retired, right? And so they lived in that house, and now they're into their senior years, and they've decided to go do either, assisted care or move into an apartment or move in with their kids or whatever the case may be because of their situation. Mm-hmm. But now those people are on a fixed income, right? So why should that person that's on a fixed income that probably has that house paid off and they worked their life to pay off that house, and then all of a sudden, because of the market dynamics and over COVID and whatever else, my property assessment or the value of my home more than doubles. So essentially, if we kind of do what's being proposed here, is that these people have worked their asses off their whole life, lived the Canadian or American dream, whatever you want to call it, of home ownership or whatever else. Mm-hmm. They've done what they're supposed to do. And now all of a sudden we're going to jack their property taxes through the roof and force these people out of their homes into a rental market that nobody can afford either.
And that's a fair point. But one would also say that they turned about a $500,000 profit on their home if they sold it, right?
No, not necessarily, because the people that sold it in 2011,
yeah,
right?
What did they sell it for?
So the people that sold it in 2011 is $287,000.
Okay,
but let's say those people were still in their house and never ever sold it, and the property value is now up to let's call it $800,000 for argument's sake.
Sure,
because it's $787 what I'm looking at.
Yeah.
Right, so I'm looking at 37 Mount Pleasant Avenue in Dartmouth.
Oh, I understand where you're going from. If the cap comes off, they would pay tax on their assessed value. I get that part. I do.
Right, so then we're going to force people out. So potentially, you could force these people that are on a fixed income or bought a house by the skin of their teeth, scraping their nickels and dimes together, right? Because it makes more sense for a lot of people to own a home than to rent. You're in a different situation,
right?
But so now all of a sudden, I'm into this house, regardless if they're a senior or they just got in at $287,000, right? But the people that bought that house at $787,000, they're at a completely different income level to afford a mortgage at $787,000 than the people were that sold that house at $287,000, right? So if you're at a different income level and your property, your house goes up, your income isn't changed, because I can sure as shit tell you that the people's incomes haven't doubled and tripled in the last 10 years. It hasn't happened, right? So if you're calling everything equal, and well, let's put everybody's salaries up by double or triple.
Steve, what do you say
it doesn't make sense. You have to have some sort of cap.
I get it.
Protect
Steve,
the people that bought their homes at a certain level.
How about the people that want to buy a home?
Well, buy a home that you can afford.
Well, we can. And then when you can, you look at the price. Then I'm going to pay a massive amount of tax just to get into that home, right?
But now,
and I make the same amount of money you do. See,
on your income.
I'm hearing a lot of people coming at me that have been homeowners for a long time, and I understand your argument. I really do, Steve. But how about those that want to get into a home? Or those that just bought a home this year that are looking at that tax bill? Well, what about them?
But the people that got into the market, that just got into the market or getting into the market, right? They're looking, or they should be looking at homes that they can. So when I was assessed for my first mortgage, right? I was assessed on the price of the house.
Yep.
Can I afford whatever formula you use? And you can talk to your buddy Clinton about it.
Right.
But your taxes and your average, I get it. Your debt level and how to run a house. They got a formula for all that, right? So the people that are buying houses right now, right, are buying houses based on their current income and their current situation and the current tax rate, whatever tax is going to be on the house, right? When I was first in the home market, I couldn't afford to live in the house that I live in now, right? But maybe there's options. Maybe we need to build more townhomes, more first-time homebuyer type of. Everyone's coming out now and wants to live in a $500,000 house.
Well, there aren't many houses that aren't $500,000.
The first house that I ever bought was in Dartmouth, and I paid $114,000 for it.
You show me a $100,000 house now, Steve. Go find me one. Right?
But there's not a $114,000 house.
Go show
anymore.
me a $500,000 house in HRM.
There's lots of $500,000 houses in HRM, but there's also lots of $1 million houses in HRM.
Right.
Right. So right.
So we artificially keep the tax rate low so that we protect people that have been in their houses for a long time is kind of what you're getting at.
You think you should force those people out of their homes?
I'm not forcing anybody out of their homes, Steve. I'm just suggesting that we need to have a fair tax rate. That's all I'm asking for.
Yeah, but no, but what you're saying is that if we'll pay tax on the assessed value. So what you're going to do is a lot of people that are out there right now, if you start paying a tax on something that they had, I would have never dreamed that the value of my home tripled. Right? So now all of a sudden I got to pay triple the value of the tax without having the cap, and you're going to force people out of their homes because they can't afford the taxes. Right? And then you're talking about homeless encampments and everything else. You're having more people on the street than you shake a stick at.
You and I are going to agree to disagree on this one, Steve. I appreciate the call, though.
You're wrong, man.
Oh, fair enough. Thanks for the call. 902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Not the first time. Probably won't be the last time that somebody tells me I'm wrong. I like to hear from somebody that is looking to buy their first home. I'm hearing from a lot of guys that have been in their houses since they were 170 grand. Let's talk to somebody who wants to buy a house at $600,000 and what they think about paying 3 times the tax that the person that they're buying it from paid this year. Let's hear from them and see what they think. We'll take a break. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. The open hour continues. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Email from Mike. It says, hey, Dan, listening to your show on the cap. However, no one mentioned why the cap was put there. The cap was put there because seniors or people who lived in their home based on their financial plans were losing their homes due to the houses being sold at higher prices, thus raising people's taxes beyond their ability to pay. Tax sales were on the rise, so the government put in the cap. Your taxes still go up, but not to double because other people bought houses for more. These people are budgeting on their purchase and income. Seniors and or others on the cap have an increase, then they can absorb the cost. So ask yourself, what if a pensioner is to do with their house capped and their taxes increased by double or more with no expectation of pension income increased to handle this? Like others have said, it's just the cost of living is hard. The owner on the cap has no control, but the people purchasing have the salary to purchase and pay, or they would not purchase the house. And that comes to us from Mike. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. All the way down to line number 9. Christopher, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you today?
Good. What's on your mind today?
Oh, good. I just heard you call, or you say on the radio that you were asking about people that bought houses and all that. So right. I bought one last December.
Okay.
I paid $550,000.
Mm-hmm.
I have an income of around $130,000 a year in our household, and they made me put down $100,000 cash on the house.
Yikes.
And I have like 800 credit score. Basically what I'm saying is that like if they take this cap off, so we bought it in December. In March, we got another appraisal of the house done because we live out in East Hants area.
Yeah.
And they went and they told us that our property value had increased in 3 months by $250,000.
Holy smokes.
And so my first property tax bill of the year, which would have been our first one we would have had to buy, was $5,000.
Uh-huh.
And then when I just got my one back here a couple months ago for the second part of it, it went up to $8,500.
And that's because you're still outside the cap, right? You haven't been there for a year? Is that how it worked?
Yep, that's correct. So basically that's what they're saying that we're going to be at. And out in East Hants, they're talking about the property values going up because they're developing everywhere. There's apartment buildings going up and everything else. So what I'm trying to say is that like, I saved up every penny I had all my life. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And I did everything I possibly could. And I still feel like it still wasn't good enough, if that makes any sense in this problem. Like I'm originally from Alberta. And right now I look at it from the point of view of, why are we trying to take this cap off if it's all like I know they say that the people that just bought houses, it should level them down and help them, bring the value down.
Right, because you get capped after the first year. Yeah, you get capped after the first year, right?
Yeah, but from what I'm understanding is that's only affecting HRN. We're outside HRN.
Oh, I don't even. There you go. Right.
Do you know what I mean? So like we're in a different thing altogether. So here I am, like our house went up, $160,000 after owning it for 3 months. So what happens after they put in a couple more high-rise buildings or a couple more stores, or they eventually put a Costco out here? You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff. I won't lie. I'm glad the NSLC allowed us to go buy whiskey today. It's been a while, and it's been a nice little treat. So I'm quite happy about that. But
hey, Christopher,
anyways, thanks for your time.
No, thanks for calling and sharing your perspective. I appreciate it.
All right, you have a great day.
902-405-6000 or 1-877-801-8255. Where are we here? I lost my screen. Let's see. We'll go to David. David, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I joined in a little late on the show today, so excuse me if somebody already mentioned this, but one thing I don't understand about this whole thing is there's properties being developed everywhere, major apartment buildings, major industrial buildings. Why wouldn't the tax rates be going down? Are they not paying taxes?
Well, the councillors will tell you that they're unable to raise their development fees, and until there's an occupancy permit up, they don't make hardly any money on them. That's what they'll tell you. I don't think I agree with them, but that's what they'll tell you.
Well, that's true because I've gone through that myself. But I will say that a lot of them are already up in operation.
Right.
A lot. So, well, all you got to do is look at Dartmouth Crossing, Bayers Lake. I mean, need not go on, but all the subdivisions, Bedford Hills, Bedford. So how can we be in such dire straits that we keep jacking the property taxes up? Like, where's this other money going?
It's an interesting question, David. It really is.
Nobody seems to mention that. They don't ever say that all the housing that has been built in apartments and I'm just repeating myself, but where's that money going? Well, are they getting it? I don't know. Where's it going? That's all I got to say.
All right, David, appreciate the call, sir.
Thank you.
902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Let's go to Greg. Greg, how are you? Greg, are you there?
Oh.
Hello.
Yes,
there you are. How are you?
Hi. Good. Hey, Dan, let me turn on the radio.
Greg, are you there?
Hi, Dan.
Hey, appreciate the call.
That you
What's
live
on your
in an
mind?
apartment.
Sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
You mentioned that you live in an apartment.
I do.
And you're taking advantage of the rent cap.
Well, absolutely. Yeah, there's no doubt.
So the other neighbor, the other apartment that's like yours, they're paying $1,000 more.
Yep.
So you're okay with that rent cap because if that was taken off, you'd be paying $12,000 more a year.
You got it.
So how could you be for that rent cap but not for the?
Because it's not taxes. That's not taxes.
Well, it's still a cap. It's a government-controlled thing.
It is, but my rent isn't a tax. All I want to do is pay my let me try that again. All I want to do is pay my fair share of tax, just like everybody else does.
Right. Well, the landlord is not getting the fair share because if the rent cap was taken off, you'd be paying $1,000 more a month.
Right.
And that landlord, his assessment on the building is the same as the other guys that's getting the extra $1,000 a month.
And I get that, Greg. But if I don't like the rent that I'm paying, I can choose to move. I can't choose to get new tax rate and move somewhere else, do I?
Well, that's what I mean. Like you have a subsidy, like a behest of the government, but you're for taking it off someone like me who owns the home, and I get a market cap.
But again, I go back to it again. I go to again, Greg. It's rent, which is something that I can control, but taxes is something I can't.
Yeah. Well, also, if I comment, I'm a former Nova Scotia provincial assessor.
Okay.
And so I know quite a bit about that. It doesn't really matter what the assessment rate is or the property assessment because in Ontario, they assessed all the properties based on 1950 values for many, many years. So the problem lies at council spends too much money. They never look at trying to reduce their spending. All they're getting on with is how they're going to get more money. And as an assessor of several towns and counties in Nova Scotia, I saw this like for a couple of years. That the onus was just to generate more revenue. So they always complain. The ratepayer complains if his assessment goes up. But that's not the thing. The person should be complaining that the council is not reining in their spending. Because it doesn't matter what your assessment is.
And you and I, Greg, are going to agree on that one for sure. They should. You're right. You're 100% correct on that.
And the other thing is, I know a lot about the Paris Accord. I studied it in depthly. And some of the councillors, like the one you had on this morning, they're these ultra-leftists. And the plan is to try to tax people out of their houses. Like she mentioned, if we raise the taxes, the old people will sell their homes. They'll be taxed out of their homes, and this frees up space for new, younger families. This is the way they talk. So that is the ultimate plan. Halifax signed on to the Halifax 2050 that we should get rid of. I ran in the summer elections to try to get rid of it, and now people are paying the price. So this is what's going to come, whether we like it or not, because we got a lot of leftist councillors and mayor on council. And I'm surprised that the mayor is kind of turning his colors a bit. He's more reasonable than I anticipated, but he's still a planner, and this is the ultimate plan for Halifax.
Greg, appreciate the call, sir.
That's what I'm going to say. Thanks.
Have a good one. 902-405-6000, 1-877-801-8255. Last word today goes to John. John, how are you?
Not too bad, Dan. You?
I'm okay. What's on your mind?
Well, I totally disagree with you 100% on this cap thing.
Okay.
I agree with Steve 100% a few callers back, and the gentleman who just spoke also brought out some good points which people should be really listening to. Dan, this cap is not going to help anybody at all who's already in their own home. I live out in the country. I pay my fair share of taxes. I have my own dug well. I have my own septic, and all the problems that come along with those things.
Fair enough.
I don't have street lights. I don't want them. And this all goes right back to the same thing. And what really POs me, and hopefully you're going to give me a minute.
Sure. Just one, because we're almost at the top of the hour, so hurry if you get it, and I'll let you go.
Okay.
No, John, carry on.
Whether it's a councillor or whether it's a municipal, federal, or provincial politician, when it comes time for election or getting close to elections or any subjects which are very controversial, the said person will get up on the soapbox and, Nova Scotians want this. We're doing the best for Nova Scotia. So how in the hell does removing the cap help Nova Scotians that have been living here the whole life, such as I have, at 68 years old? I cannot afford for the cap to go off, and I shouldn't have to have the cap removed. But what I would like to see is all our elective representatives who are very well looked after by the taxpayers with their salaries, their pensions, and all the other frills that go along with it, they be brought down to the level of the average Nova Scotian or Canadian. That's when you will see money being saved. That's when you will see development, which helps the whole problem. It's not just friends of politicians. And what really gets me, especially when it comes to our federal government and provincial, spend your money, keep it here in Nova Scotia, keep it here in Canada. And what do a lot of our politicians do? Their money goes outside the country. So they're exempt. And I am so PO'd with this thing about cap, non-cap. How did this all come about? It needs to be looked at. We do live in Canada. We do not live in Europe. The councillors, politicians, well, look what they're doing over in Germany. You can go to Spain, you can go to Portugal, and you can live just as well, if not better, for less than we do here.
John, I'm out of time. I appreciate it, sir.
Yeah.
Have a good one. I appreciate each and every one of you for picking up the phone, dialing the numbers, and joining the conversation. Love to hear all of your opinions on things. We're going to do this again tomorrow, so if you didn't get through today, plenty of opportunity to do that. Time to take a break. We're going to get an update on the news. On the other side of it, we're going to get the very latest on this storm that's blowing its way in. Are we going to see snow? Are we going to see rain? Where's the snow-rain line? All of that and more when our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, joins us right after the break. This is the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Back in minutes. This is hour number 3 of the Monday edition of the Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Ahlstrand. Hope you're having a fantastic day. I mentioned it off the top of the show today that it was a bit of a soggy commute on the way in. Apparently that might be the calm before the storm, at least the calm before the latest storm that's going to run into our part of the world. We're going to connect up with our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, here in moments, and we'll get an idea of what we can expect. There was a lot of speculation about this coming nor'easter. If you go back to Wednesday and Thursday of last week when the forecast started to come out and people were starting to talk about this storm, I do even recall a meteorologist on a TV network saying that this could be the first shovelable snow of the year for some, and I think that might still be the case, but not necessarily for HRM. But let's go to our expert in the field, our weather specialist, and that is Allister Aalders. Allister, how are you?
I'm good, Dan. How are you?
When you and I last chatted on Friday, there was a lot of uncertainty that was attached to this storm. You were talking about tracks and location, and that would have a determining factor on what kind of precipitation we were going to get. Now it's just a few hours away now. I would assume that those numbers are starting to become more solid.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that uncertainty did persist through the weekend, but as the system is starting to come together today, it's still located, off the coast of Louisiana and Texas. It's starting to come into better agreement. Now, it's one of those systems where, a slight change in the track or a very slight difference in the temperature would have a large influence on what we receive. But overall, it is starting to solidify. Now, it looks like in general, we start to see the precipitation arriving Tuesday afternoon to evening, afternoon first in the western regions in the Halifax area, during to the later stages of the commute home, although I don't think tomorrow's commute will be problematic, and we can talk about that, and then eastern regions as we go through the evening, and likely just a messy mix for the province. It looks like for Halifax and much of the Atlantic coast, it will largely be a rain event with the potential for some snow mixing in initially and then on the back side of the system on Wednesday morning. And then for more interior areas, so inland from the Atlantic coast, the valley, through parts of the North Shore and into northern Cape Breton, places like East and West Hants could also see this initial period of snow, possibly at times mixed with rain, but more so largely a wet snow event for them. And then it starts to pull away as we go through Wednesday, first clearing western regions Wednesday morning to early afternoon, and then eastern regions afternoon to early evening Wednesday. So it's not as fast moving as some of these other systems have been, which, means the potential for greater impacts with the system just in various forms depending on your location.
All right, Allister, the drive home tomorrow, what can I expect?
Well, I don't think it'll be too bad based on what I'm seeing right now. Temperatures, near 1 or 2 degrees, so it's likely going to be a mix of rain and snow. Rain more likely in the city and the closer you are to the coast, and then a wet snow as you make your way inland, Sackville, Mount Uniacke, Fall River out to the airport. But precipitation during that time should be fairly light and the winds will not be a major concern. So I'm not really seeing any challenges that should come from the commute tomorrow afternoon. Obviously, drive with care into the conditions because, at this time of year, terrain can play a big factor. But it looks like with temperatures, above the freezing mark and much of HRM seeing rain or just wet snow, we'll likely see a lot of melting on contact to start with this system. So the drive home, I think, will be fine Tuesday.
All right. For parents that are planning to get their kids ready for school on Wednesday, snowsuits, rubber boots, umbrellas, or snow day?
Maybe a mix of everything. I mean, certainly it looks like in Halifax, largely a rain event, 40, 50, possibly more millimeters of rain. The drive to work Wednesday is not going to be great, largely because of the heavy rain early in the morning and the strong winds that will be ramping up. But there could also be a period of wet snow on the back side of the system early Wednesday morning. And while I don't think that would have the potential to, say, accumulate significantly, obviously the potential for things to be a bit messy very early Wednesday. So, I still think the verdict is out on whether or not there's any cancellations in the city and in HRM on Wednesday. Certainly at this point, from what models are showing and from what I'm forecasting, I don't think there will be a significant amount of snow in Halifax or along the coast. I think amounts will be quite minimal based on just how much rain we will see. But obviously, if the system were to just track a bit farther south than what is currently forecast, we would likely see more snow. The interior locations of HRM could be a bit more tricky. If we do see more wet snow than mixing with rain, then we could see, some accumulations that require the shovels that could, cause impacts to travel on Wednesday. So keeping an eye there, but I'd say more so the Annapolis Valley, possibly parts of West and East Hants, although I think it would be closer to the minus basin in both cases, and then across Cumberland and parts of Colchester counties and northern Cape Breton is where we're more likely to see the accumulating snow on a greater scale, 15 to 30 plus centimeters. So those locations more likely to be dealing with a snow day on Wednesday.
Amounts? Do you have any preliminary amounts that you think are going to fall?
Well, as I just mentioned, for parts of the valley and Cumberland, Colchester, northern Cape Breton, it looks like at least 15 to 30 centimeters of snow there. The potential for higher amounts can't be ruled out. The system will be strengthening as it goes by, and it looks like there will be a period of some heavy snow overnight into early Wednesday as it does so. So I'm continuing to keep an eye on the guidance and what forecast trends are showing there. I mean, but then amounts as you move towards the Atlantic coast really drop off because of that mixing and then just mainly rain. So still very uncertain for those interior areas of HRM. You know, as I mentioned, Bedford, Sackville, Mount Uniacke out to Enfield. The potential that we do see some light accumulations that, say, exceed 5 centimeters, but I don't think would get any higher than maybe 10, but will really be dependent on the track. And even, exceeding 5 centimeters is a bit of a question mark right now. If it really does turn out to be more mixed with rain or even just more of a rain event for those interior areas, we would not see a lot of snow. And then for the city itself, aside from that possible period of wet snow early on Wednesday, which likely will not accumulate to a whole lot, we're really not looking at a lot of snow in the city or for the coast. It's mostly going to be 40 to 50 plus millimeters of rain. And then, of course, winds for everyone into and on Wednesday from obviously the north and then to the northwest behind the system, gusting 60, 70 kilometers per hour, possibly up to 80 for some areas. So regardless of precipitation type, Tuesday night and at least the first half of Wednesday really not looking nice anywhere in the province, really.
And then on the other side of it, Allister, we get through Thursday, and then Friday the deep freeze comes.
Yes, it's going to be a bit of a shock to the system, I think, because, obviously we're getting a bit of a taste of that tonight. Overnight lows in Halifax between about -6 and -8, so a chilly start tomorrow morning, but obviously temperatures do bump up Tuesday afternoon, and then we see a bit of a mild day on Thursday, highs near 5 degrees, but we have a cold front and a trough that will be moving through late Thursday into Thursday night with a few showers, possibly mixing to a few periods of light snow. I'm not expecting that to be a system of great significance, but I'll keep an eye on it. But the Arctic air floods in for Friday, waking up Friday -10 to -12 in the Halifax area. So the coldest air so far this season. Highs on Friday near -5, -6 in the Halifax area. So we're not even going to be near freezing on Friday. And that cold air will be sticking around into what will be hard to believe, the first weekend of December. Temperatures do look set to not quite moderate, but fluctuate a bit during that period. But it does look like we will be seeing, as we go through kind of this first period, if you will, this first half of December, that we're going to see these kind of cold air injections reinforce themselves. So they come in and temperatures try to moderate a bit, but then we see further blasts of Arctic air. So, temperatures moderate a bit into Sunday, but then another blast of Arctic air into Monday of next week. So that's looking like the trend for temperatures for the first half of the month is kind of this battle between continental Arctic air that wants to move in and obviously the various air masses taking shape off the Atlantic coast with the passage of systems offshore.
Allister, we'll keep our eyes on it and appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Dan, and have a great day.
That is our weather specialist, Allister Aalders, as we look for a storm to start tomorrow during the drive home and then deal with it on Wednesday. It'll all depend on where you are. If you're in the valley or in parts of West and East Hants, you may see some accumulations that are shovelable. Here in HRM, looks like it's probably going to be more of a rain event than anything else, which will create for some sloppy conditions. But I don't think we'll have to shovel it. At least at this point, that looks like it's good news for us. Going to take a break. When we come back, a call to strengthen Nova Scotia's rent subsidy program. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Olstrand. We're back in minutes. All right, welcome back. Monday show rolls along here. Recently at a Standing Committee on Public Accounts down there at Province House, a focus on the rent subsidy program. But our next guest said a lot of the key points that are associated with that program were missed and weren't discussed. And we're very pleased to welcome into the program today to chat with us a little bit about that. This associate professor in the MBA in Community Economic Development Program up at Cape Breton University and leading a national HRC CMHC partnership grant on affordable housing, and the author of a new report, and that's Dr. Catherine Leviten-Reid. Doctor, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
That's a long title. Holy smokes. Anyway,
yeah, it sure is.
You're doing a lot of stuff. Can we just say that?
Sure.
All right. So this rent subsidy program that was before the legislative committee discussing this program, you wrote a report that I read from the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives that suggests that some of the key points in that program weren't even discussed at this meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I focused on three main ones, but there are, in fact, more than that, as I've discovered in the research that I've been doing on this rent subsidy program in Nova Scotia for the past 4 years.
What's the biggest point that they missed?
Well, I'm not sure which one was the biggest point, because I have to say that they're all very impactful. They certainly impact the lives of low-income renters day in and day out. But I guess the first one that I'll start with is the condition of the units that people are renting. So I've often found in the interviews that I've done with renter households who are receiving the supplement that the units that they're living in are not of good quality, and they certainly are not meeting minimum standards. So just as some examples, they might talk about chronic mold that they're facing, chronic infestations, something that very much impacts them because they have to have their food and their clothing boxed up in Tupperware containers in order to remain in those units. They might talk about heating systems that don't work very well, or they might talk about, say, windows and doors that aren't shutting properly, or maybe boarded up windows. So that's the first one. Certainly, you need to be living in a home of good quality so that it doesn't impact your health and mental health. So that wasn't discussed during the meeting, and I find that problematic because we're allocating public funds to this rent supplement program.
Right. And one would think that there would be some kind of caveat to that, right? You can take part in this program if that unit meets minimum standards.
That's right. And it's worth pointing out that, we've had different rent supplement programs in this province for quite some time now, going back to the early 1980s. And in those earlier versions of the rent supplement programs, there actually were inspections done of units. But starting in 2020, when Nova Scotia signed an agreement with the federal government around the Canada Housing Benefit, that requirement to have inspections done was dropped. It's also worth pointing out that, when they had their public accounts meeting a couple of weeks ago, they pointed to different practices, different ways the housing supplement has been implemented in different parts of the country. And certainly in Newfoundland and Labrador, people who are receiving this rent supplement do have their units inspected, at move-in. And so I think it's definitely something that needs to be implemented here. The housing benefit is very important. The people who I've interviewed very much express that they value receiving that cash assistance every month. But the fact that they're sometimes living in housing in poor condition very much needs to be addressed. Inspections is one way to do it, but we could also implement a provincial landlord licensing program to ensure that no renters in Nova Scotia are facing housing in questionable condition.
Secondly, you say utility costs were were missed, and that's kind of a big bill to miss, right?
It's a huge one, especially, our electricity costs keep going up. certainly for people who are renting units where their homes are heated with oil, I mean, those are very large bills as well that tenants are left paying. So that's right. So the way the rent subsidy is calculated, it bridges the gap between 30% of your household income and average market rent for the region that you're living in. So it doesn't take into account whether or not your utilities are actually included in rent. And typically, rents don't include all utilities, so those average market rent figures are lower than they should be. And so it also means that renters are left paying those bills on their own. Meanwhile, to be living in housing that's truly affordable, you need to be spending less than 30% of your household income on your rent plus your utilities. So it definitely is something that needs to be factored in to the cost of the subsidy amount as well. And
another subject area that you uncovered during your interviews, Doctor, was a fear from tenants that their landlord was going to sell out or sell their unit out from underneath them, and moving that to one new other place is difficult to do.
Yeah, so a feature of this rent supplement program in Nova Scotia is that tenants have choice. So again, this is different from the older versions of the subsidy program where they were attached to a specific unit. So you didn't have the ability to move. So say if I was renting in Sydney in a unit that was subsidized through a rent subsidy and I wanted to move to, say, New Waterford because my place of work was there, or I needed to access services on a regular basis in New Waterford, I couldn't just automatically move because the subsidy didn't go with me. And so, this new version of the rent subsidy program in Nova Scotia is celebrated in part because of this portability. But as a matter of fact, that feature wasn't really noted as being of importance to tenants. It was really the opposite that I found in my interviews with them. It was more that they really feared losing the housing that they were in. So it could, maybe often what came up in interviews was that there was this worry that the landlord was going to sell the property, Another fear was, that they have been offered a fixed term lease only of perhaps 12 months or perhaps only 6 months, and they weren't sure what was going to happen after that. So there's this strong sense of housing insecurity instead of this, feeling that, this design is a good thing because I'm able to, move if I want to. So really, choice and power seems to be in the hands of landlords and not in the tenants who are receiving the rent subsidy in the province.
The report is available at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives. Doctor, I appreciate your time today.
Thanks so much.
That is Dr. Catherine Leviten-Reid, who is an associate professor at Cape Breton University and the author of this look at the rent subsidy program. We're going to take a break for the news, and when we come back, a $500,000 shot in the arm for families at the IWK. We'll dig into it with the president and CEO of the IWK Foundation. That's Jennifer Gillivan. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Welcome back. This is the Todd Veinotte Show on a Monday, and the sun is coming out, just as was predicted, right? Clearing off this afternoon. A bit of a calm before the storm, and then Tuesday evening we're going to get into the real teeth of this nor'easter, and looks like it's going to be a rain event for HRM, snow for places to the west. We'll get an updated forecast out to you tomorrow as we get more data from the storm. How about an early Christmas present for the IWK Foundation? They're celebrating a $500,000 shot in the arm through Scotiabank's Scotia Rise Community Investment Initiative. And this is going to provide some financial and some wraparound programming for patients at the IWK and, of course, their families that are in need. We're very pleased to welcome to the show to tell us a little bit about this money and what it's going to be used for, the president and CEO of the IWK Foundation. That's Jennifer Gillivan. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you? I'm cringing when you started to use the word snow in the.
I'm sorry. I know we ban it here up until December. It's the 1st of December today, so we kind of have to let it go, right?
I know. I'll never get used to it.
Yeah, I hear you. And on the other line,
we're great at the IWK. Thanks.
No, everything's good at the IWK. And on the other line, Director of Interprofessional Practice and Learning at the IWK. That's Nancy Cashen. Nancy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having us.
Oh, I'm very happy to be here. This is a good news story. It's a good way to start the week. Jennifer, I guess the most important question is this $500,000 that you're getting from Scotiabank. Where is it going, and how will patients and their families benefit from it?
So if you think about, families, even in regular times, it's stressful, especially this time of year too. Economically, you're stretching every dollar. And now add on the layer of a sick child, right? And all of a sudden you may be in the IWK with your child. It could be days, weeks, months. Some people are there a long time. And they have to take time off work. And it can be very, very stressful. So Nancy and her team, these are amazing people in social work and child life who really wrap their arms around a family, because it's true family-centered care. When you take care of the family, they help take care of the child. It all works together. So this kind of donation is kind of a game changer for us, because we'll be able to help families get food for themselves and afford it, and other needs as they need them, and social work determines that with them. But predominantly in the first year, this is all around food security while you're there in the IWK, helping the families help their own children and give them the support they need at a really crucial time. So it's a great gift. It really is.
Nancy, not something that one considers when one is coming to the IWK. Normally it's their child that they're most concerned with, and getting them on the road to recovery, and not being able to, for the bills to meet the end of the month, as I like to say, is not usually at the top of their mind.
No, absolutely. And I think that's what we really have done, is partnered with families, because you're right. The first concern is their child. And when they arrive here, that's all that they want. But then as the stay progresses, and logistically figuring out how they're going to get to and from the hospital, wondering how, while a parent stays here and potentially a caregiver or a parent stays at home with other children, it starts to become really clear that already stretched resources may become even more strained. And really what we're hoping is that this will alleviate some of that strain that families are feeling. It wasn't uncommon for staff to go in and see a patient and their family and ask if a support person had eaten today. And often it would be no, because they haven't had a chance, or they haven't been able to afford to go down to the cafeteria. And so really, by looking at supporting the family, we are looking at making sure that the family stays together and that we are giving the right type of support so that the child or the adult that is here at the IWK is being cared for in the way that they need to be, in a compassionate, holistic way.
Nancy, do they have to apply for this new funding, or how does that work?
No, actually, for the funding, it depends on which part of it. For the food, what happens is that we are supporting one care person that will be with a patient, and so what happens is they let their nurse and or social worker know, and then they get enrolled in the Nourish and Restore program. Now, because this is new, we are just starting it as a pilot, so we don't have it fully implemented across the organization, but we do have it on a couple of our units, and we're hoping to roll it out throughout the organization quite quickly. But it's really aiming to provide universal provision of food, and really making sure that people are supported. And so there's no discussion that has to kind of be held about income or anything like that. It just has to be that they are here, and we're going to feed that care provider that's here, and they are going to be wrapped around in those supports.
Jennifer, we often think of the wonderful work that the folks do down at the IWK for our kids. Now, with programs like this, we not only treat the child and the child's ailment, but we also help the family.
100%. It makes me almost like be emotional listening to Nancy talking about it, because we always say you never know when you need the IWK, but when you do, you always want to make sure the best equipment and trained staff are there. But you also want programs like these and others that we have. And it's so, it's what makes the magic, I think, at the IWK. It's the glue. It's why patients, you'll see them, they leave after a long stay, and then when they have to come back for a checkup, the kids love coming back in because they've only ever known support like what Nancy's describing. And I just think of these parents at a really dark, difficult time, and to have somebody wrap their arms around them and say, "We've got you. Don't worry, we've got you and your child." It's an amazing thing. The IWK never ceases to amaze me or catch me, because they're always looking to do something better and deeper for those families. They truly do care about the whole family, not just the child.
And that work is 12 months a year, 365 days a year. We know the Christmas season's coming, Jennifer, and this is probably a little more important now than at most times of the year with the holidays around the corner.
100%. Yeah, we have other programs for fuel, for other supports, and so we do get at this time of year, as you can imagine, we get donations of toys, and that's terrific because we want to keep kids. But, donating to sort of our area of greatest need through the IWK Foundation, we ensure that we keep programs like these going. And having that big injection from, Scotia Rise is just a game changer for us. But then that enables us to do other things to support these families. So anyone listening that, wants to help, we'd love to help because it's always needed, and it's always well stewarded, because we put these families first every time, and it's so heartwarming, especially this time of year.
Well, keep up the great work down there at the IWK, and I'm sure we'll be chatting soon in the new year.
Okay, thank you so much, Dan.
That is Nancy Cashen and Jennifer Gillivan, both of the IWK. With this new initiative, they're able to provide some wraparound services for families. Recently had a friend, our former colleague actually, who worked with in another market, who had a daughter down at the IWK for an extended stay, and very happy to report that her daughter's now home, which is a good news story, but told me and some of us of the wonderful work that happens at the IWK at the darkest time, at just most desperate moments. They're there to help our kids, and I can't think of a better way to help them is to give them a little bit of support. So keep up the good work down there at the IWK. We like you all down on the South End, and we'll keep you in our thoughts when it comes to Giving Tuesday, which is tomorrow, right? Speaking of Giving Tuesday, the United Way is joining up with BMO to address some urgent community needs. We'll tell you what's going on there when we come back. You're listening to The Todd Veinotte Show. I'm Dan Alstrand. We're back in minutes. Well, we know that there was Black Friday, and there's that what it is, and then there was Small Business Saturday, and I took part and bought some coffee and goodies from a local coffee shop, and enjoyed my Small Business Saturday, and then today, of course, is Cyber Monday, and we haven't really talked about it a lot because I'm pretty sure you have a hangover from Black Friday, but there'll be a lot of people that are tuning to their computers today to see if there's any sales or anything that they missed, and maybe getting a couple of those people knocked off of their Christmas lists. But tomorrow, everybody, is Giving Tuesday, and that's kind of what we focused this last half hour on. We just had a conversation with the IWK, and this next few minutes we're going to spend with the United Way Maritimes, and they're putting on an event tomorrow that is going to help a lot of people. And what they're going to do is they're going to launch a giving campaign in connection with employees at BMO to help support communities right across the Maritimes in their time of need. We're very pleased to welcome into the show today to tell us a little bit about this and give us a little bit of perspective, the Manager of Communications and Public Policy with United Way Maritimes, and that is Sarah White. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Tell me a little about this event that you got planned for tomorrow to help some people out.
Yeah, well, we're really, really grateful for their partnership with BMO, and they do an initiative across North America, actually, for Giving Tuesday, where they do some volunteer activations in 19 different cities across North America, and Halifax is one of them. So we're really excited to be partnering with them, and they're going to put some winter warming kits together for people who are experiencing homelessness this winter.
So the event tomorrow is going to put these things together, and then they're going to go to the homeless community. Is that how it works?
Well, sort of, yeah. So basically, the employees from BMO will come together, and we'll have some of our own staff kind of like talk a little bit about the issue of homelessness and kind of what's happening in our city, and they'll put together these kits. They have like gloves and socks and a hat and a gift card and hand warmers and things like that. And then United Way will take care of making sure they get out to frontline agencies serving people who are experiencing homelessness or are, spending a lot of time outdoors in the winter.
Sounds like it's going to be a fun event and a helpful event as well.
Yeah, I think it'll be a fun event for employees to kind of come together and see where their dollars are going in community when they're donating to United Way. But it will certainly be very helpful because these winter warming kits are always needed. We want to prevent people from, getting frostbite and things like that as much as possible.
Sarah, it's Giving Tuesday, and of course there's a lot of need in the community, right? And United Way fills that need for a lot of people each and every year.
Yes, yeah, and Giving Tuesday is just one day a year, but we really encourage people to consider giving at any time in the year and not just one day. But, some of the things that you're supporting when you're supporting United Way is addressing housing and homelessness, addressing food security, education and employment, safety and well-being, and social inclusion and access. And so currently in the Halifax area, we're funding 34 programs, but across the Maritimes, we're funding about 165.
All right, Sarah, if somebody wants to give a helping hand to the United Way, how do they do? It's the best way to do that.
Well, the best way is to go to our website, unitedwaymaritimes.ca, and make a donation. But I know a lot of times people are trying to think creatively about things that they can do to fundraise, and we have lots of different options and tools. So reaching out to see what might work for you. If you want to throw a little event, sometimes during the holiday season, you'll see some businesses get together and do a little event and kind of challenge each other to give or to collect donations. Things like that are always great. We do monthly donations. If somebody is like, I don't have a lot to give right now, but they could give all year long with a smaller gift every month, that's always a great option. There's really lots of opportunity.
Absolutely. And the United Way Maritimes website is your one-stop shop, so to speak.
Yeah, you can get to any of our local sites because we also serve, the Colchester and Cumberland communities, Pictou County and Lunenburg County in Nova Scotia. So it's easy to get to any of those local sites and understand more about what's happening locally. But yeah, UnitedWayMaritimes.ca. That's right.
Sarah, appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
That is Sarah White, Manager of Communications and Public Policy from United Way Maritimes. Got a couple minutes left here before we have to sign off for the day. A couple of emails that came in after our rather spirited, can I say, open hour today. Some of them I can't read on the air, but others I'd like to share with you and just to give you a little perspective on things when it comes to the property assessment cap. It said, hey, Dan, sorry, just another old guy who bought his current house 30 years ago. I hear you, and like many others, have already stated that life isn't fair. 30 years ago, when I bought this house, the price was much lower than what my new neighbor paid for his. But remember that my salary 30 years ago was nowhere close to what he currently makes. Also, mortgage rates 30 years ago was 9+%, vice today's 4.3% over the 3-year fixed rate. When I bought my first house, mortgage rates were at an average of 11+%. Is that fair, that I had to pay more for my mortgages? So if you want to make it fair, let's only pay for the services that we get. People in Halifax will pay more than people in Musquodoboit, and your municipal taxes will go up on a yearly basis depending on their cost. And that comes to us from Denny. Denny, I'll agree with you on some of that. But as Councillor Hendsbee told us in the first hour today, that the service cost for places like Musquodoboit and Sheet Harbor and Porter's Lake and all of the rural areas that I'm forgetting around HRM is much more than a dense area. It costs more to collect garbage in a rural neighborhood than it does, say, in my neighborhood. And if we pay for services, then does that not make it unfair for those that live in the rural areas? We already hear of the rural-urban divide, and I think that probably doesn't do much to make that better. I don't know what the answer is. Like I've said during the open hour, and I'm sure that this topic of conversation will come up again during the open hour tomorrow, and I look forward to it. I always look forward to your conversations. I just want to pay my fair share of taxes. No more, no less. Last email. Dan, in tax policy, we refer to horizontal and vertical equity. The former implies that entities in similar situations should be treated equally. The latter involves a value judgment to how tax entities with different economic and financial situations. Typically, we view those with higher ability to pay should pay more tax. 2 points. The quantity and quality of services provided by HRM are unrelated to the level of taxes paid. A principal residence is not a financial asset like a bond portfolio. He says you can't sell 1/10 of a house to support current spending. In my case, my neighbors bought their house 2 years ago and paid let me do that again. In my case, my neighbors bought their house 2 years ago and paid $10,000 in taxes, while we only pay $6,000 on a house we bought 30 years ago. The two houses would likely sell at a similar price. The question is whether we are the same under horizontal equity considerations. Clearly, the current and future earnings of a 38-year-old are higher than that of a 70-year-old retiree, although I likely had a higher income prior to retirement, he said. So the removal of the property tax cap fails under horizontal equity. And that came to us from Roy. Fantastic emails. Fantastic calls, and I look forward to hearing from you tomorrow as we open up those telephone lines again at 11 o'clock. Don't forget, looks like we're going to see some weather tomorrow on the drive home. Doesn't look like it's going to be anything on the drive in and during the day, but we may see, at least at the tail end of the commute tomorrow, some rain and perhaps a rain-snow mix. Wednesday looks like it's going to be the one that we have to keep our eye on. It's very dependent on where you live, folks. For those of us that are listening to us in HRM, on the peninsula and in the city, probably not going to see a lot of white stuff fall as a result of this storm, but we could see 30, 40, maybe 50 millimeters of snow. If you live in the valley or in east or west Hants or areas to the west, I'm thinking like up and around the Cobequid Pass and into Antigonish and up into Cape Breton, you're likely going to see more snow than rain. And Allister told us earlier today that could be in the 30-centimeter range. So best to keep your eye on the forecast, and we'll try to bring you some of the latest information that we can through the day today and into tomorrow so that you're best armed. And kids, it's time, if you want to get that snow day, is to get the pajamas out and wear them inside out and backwards? Is that what the kids do to try to get snow days? Anyway, I'm sure there'll be lots of them that are doing that on Tuesday night. Thanks to Vanessa Vandenez on the other side of the glass for all the hard work that she does. The show doesn't happen without her. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Get out there before the rain and enjoy what Nova Scotia has to offer. We're so lucky to live here. People pay thousands of dollars to come just to see what we see every day. For some lucky. Be kind to one another. See you tomorrow.